The marketplace was loud, full of voices, smoke, and strange smells. Ships landed and lifted off from the docks carrying goods from across the galaxy. Traders shouted the prices of weapons, machines, and food. Some stalls sold rare crystals. Others sold illegal drugs or dangerous creatures. Everyone came here for one reason: profit. But among the noise and flashing lights, there was one corner of the market that was darker. The air was heavy, the smell sharper. In that corner, cages stood in long rows. Inside the cages were living beings. Slaves, humans, aliens, young, old. It did not matter. As long as someone paid the price, they could take a living being away. The galaxy was cruel, and this place was proof. A man walked through the market. His name was Daniel, a human traveler. He was tall with tired eyes and wore an old space jacket. He had seen many battles in his life, and he wanted no more. He only came to this station to buy fuel and supplies for his ship. He wanted to leave quickly, but then he heard it. A sound, soft, weak, almost lost in the noise of the crowd. It was the sound of a child crying. Daniel stopped walking. His eyes moved across the cages. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Old traders, silent prisoners, alien guards holding weapons. But then his gaze locked on one small cage at the end of the row. Inside the cage sat a child. The child was small, with thin arms and glowing silver eyes. The skin was pale blue, marked with faint patterns that looked like stars on the night sky. A chain wrapped around one ankle, too heavy for such a small body. The child looked no older than 6. Daniel stepped closer without thinking. The closer he came, the stronger he felt a strange pull, like his heart knew this child before his mind did. "Rare find, isn't it?" a trader said. The man was fat with sharp teeth and gold rings on his hands. Alien brat, strong bloodline. Worth a fortune. Daniel kept his eyes on the child. What did this child do to end up here? The trader laughed. Do? Nothing. Doesn't matter. Someone paid me to take it, so I sell it. That's how the market works. The child raised its head. Their silver eyes met Daniel's. For a moment, the noise of the market disappeared. Daniel only saw fear, pain, and something else, hope. The trader leaned closer. You look interested. I can give you a price, but careful. Many want this one. Dangerous bloodline, they say. Cursed, maybe. But strong. Very strong. Daniel felt anger rising in his chest. He knew the law of this station. Slavery was not illegal here. If he tried to fight, the guards would shoot him down. But how could he walk away? How could he leave the child in that cage? He forced his voice to stay calm. How much? The trader's eyes gleamed. For you, human. 2,000 credits, it was too high. Daniel had just enough credits to buy fuel and food for his journey. If he paid, he would be stranded. But the thought of leaving the child here, he could not. The trader grinned, thinking Daniel would walk away. If you can't pay, don't waste my time. Others will come soon. Big money buyers. They know what this child is worth. The child's thin fingers gripped the bars. Their lips moved, but no sound came out. Yet Daniel understood. He didn't know how, but he felt the meaning in his heart. Help me. The words cut through him like a blade. Daniel made his choice. He leaned closer to the trader. I'll take the child. The trader's smile widened. Good, pay now. Daniel handed over his credits. Every last one. His hands shook as he gave up the money he needed for his ship, but his eyes never left the child. The trader unlocked the cage and pulled the child out by the chain. Yours now. Don't blame me if trouble comes for you. The chain dropped to the ground with a heavy sound. Daniel knelt and gently lifted the child into his arms. The child's body was light, too light and trembling. The moment their skin touched, Daniel felt something strange. A warmth spread through his chest, almost like a spark of energy flowing from the child into him. He didn't understand it, but he knew it was not ordinary. The child clung to his jacket. For the first time, Daniel saw a small smile on their face. A smile full of relief, but the market was watching. Traders, guards, hunters, they all stared. Some whispered. Some laughed. Some looked angry. Daniel knew what this meant. He had just bought more than a child. He had bought himself a storm of danger, but it was too late to turn back. He stood tall, holding the child close. His eyes scanned the crowd. He felt their stares, their hate, their greed. He did not care. He whispered softly to the child so only they could hear. You're safe now, I promise. And in that promise, the story truly began. The child was in Daniel's arms, small and trembling, when the market exploded with whispers. Traders muttered. Guards frowned. Some hunters smiled as if they had just seen an easy prize. Daniel walked fast, his steps heavy against the metal floor. He could feel eyes on his back. He knew what those stares meant. Trouble. The child pressed their face against his chest. Their thin hands clutched his jacket like they feared being taken away again. Daniel's jaw tightened. He whispered, "Hold on. I won't let them take you." The docking bay was not far, but every step felt longer. The crowd parted slowly, many curious, some angry. Daniel's hand stayed close to the blaster at his belt. Then he heard it. "Stop that man." A guard's voice cut through the noise. Heavy boots slammed against the ground. The market's security forces pushed through the crowd, pointing their rifles. Daniel cursed under his breath. He pulled the child closer and started to run. The crowd erupted in shouts as he shoved past merchants and stalls. A crate of glowing fruit spilled across the floor. Someone screamed. Someone else laughed. The guards fired warning shots. Sparks flew off the walls. Daniel ducked into a narrow alley between two stalls, his boots pounding against the floor. The child gasped, clinging tighter. "Don't be scared," Daniel said, though his own heart was racing. "We'll make it." The alley twisted, then split into two paths. He ran left, trusting his instincts. Behind him, voices shouted, footsteps chased. The air smelled of smoke and oil. Neon signs flashed on the walls, throwing strange colors across the shadows. Daniel's mind raced. His ship was close, but if they blocked the bay doors, escape would be impossible. A blaster bolt hit the wall beside him. The flash lit the alley. Daniel turned sharply, shielding the child with his body. He fired back once, his shot forcing the guards to scatter. But more were coming. Too many. Then something happened. The child lifted their head. Their silver eyes glowed brighter than before. Daniel felt heat in the air, like the space around them had shifted. The walls shook. The lights above flickered. "What?" Daniel whispered. The child's small hand stretched out from his jacket. The ground beneath their pursuers cracked just for a moment. One of the guards stumbled and fell. The glow vanished as quickly as it came. The child slumped against Daniel's chest, exhausted. Daniel's breath caught. Powers. This child has powers, no time to think. He ran faster, turning corner after corner until finally, the docking bay doors came into view. His ship stood waiting, old, scratched, but reliable. His only home. But 3 guards were already there, blocking the ramp. Daniel slowed, heart pounding. He had no more credits, no more tricks. He could fight, but with the child in his arms, it was suicide. The lead guard stepped forward, sneering. "You made a mistake, human. That's no child. That's property. Hand it over." Daniel's grip tightened. His voice came out cold. "This child belongs to no one." The guards laughed. One raised his weapon, and then chaos. From behind Daniel, a loud crash. A transport droid carrying crates lost control and slammed into the guards. The crates exploded open, spilling metal parts everywhere. Sparks flew, alarms screamed. Daniel didn't wait. He sprinted forward, rushing past the chaos, up the ramp of his ship. The child clung to him, silent but alert. Inside, he sealed the door and ran to the cockpit. His fingers flew over the controls. Engines roared to life, the ship shaking under the sudden power. Outside, more guards stormed into the bay. Some aimed weapons. Others called for backup. Daniel's ship lifted from the ground. Blaster fire struck the hull, shaking it. The child gasped and buried their face against his shoulder. "Stay with me," Daniel whispered. Almost there. The ship rose higher, turning toward the force field that separated the bay from the stars. But the market had its defenses. Heavy cannons powered up, their lights glowing red. A voice echoed through the bay's speakers. "Unauthorized launch detected. Power down your ship or be destroyed." Daniel gritted his teeth. His hands gripped the controls. He knew his ship was old, slow. Against cannons, it had no chance. The child's hand touched his arm. Daniel glanced down. Their silver eyes glowed faintly again, though weaker this time. The space around the ship shimmered. For a moment, the red targeting beams of the cannons bent, shifting away from their hull. The cannons fired. Blinding blasts cut through the air, missing the ship by inches. Daniel didn't know how, but he didn't question it. He pushed the engines to maximum. The ship shot forward through the force field and into the black sea of space. Behind them, alarms screamed louder. Patrol ships scrambled to follow. Daniel leaned back, sweat on his forehead. His heart pounded in his chest. The child lay weak in the co-pilot seat, eyes half closed, breathing shallow. He stared at them for a moment. So small, so fragile, yet inside them burned a power strong enough to bend reality itself. He whispered softly, "What are you, little one?" The child's lips moved. Barely a whisper, but Daniel heard it, safe. "With you." Daniel's chest tightened. He reached out, covering the child's tiny hand with his own. For the first time in years, he felt something he thought he had lost: purpose. But as the stars stretched before them, Daniel knew one thing: they were not safe yet. The market would not forget. The hunters would not stop. He had rescued the child. But now, the whole galaxy might come to take them back, and the chase had only just begun. The stars outside the ship glowed like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Daniel's ship drifted quietly now, far from the station where chaos had erupted. But inside the cockpit, silence was heavier than the void. Daniel sat in the pilot's chair, his hands resting on the controls, though the ship was on autopilot. His eyes kept sliding to the small figure curled in the co-pilot seat. The child. They were wrapped in an old blanket Daniel had found in the storage locker. Their pale blue skin looked even paler under the dim lights. Silver eyes, half closed, glimmered faintly as though some hidden fire still burned inside. For a long while, neither spoke. Only the hum of the ship filled the space. Finally, Daniel said softly, "You saved us back there." The child didn't answer. They clutched the blanket tighter, as if afraid the moment he looked away they would be taken again. Daniel sighed. He leaned back, rubbing his face with tired hands. "I don't even know your name." The child blinked slowly, then whispered, voice rough and small, "Leora." Daniel's eyes softened. "Leora. That's a beautiful name." The child tilted their head as if testing the sound of his voice, trying to decide if it was safe. Daniel pointed at himself. "I'm Daniel. You can call me that." Leora's lips moved again, almost too quiet to hear. "Daniel." The sound of it made something in him tighten. A single word, but it carried trust. He reached for a small pack of ration bars and water, placing them gently on the console near her. "Here, eat, you need strength." At first, Leora only stared. Her hands shook when she reached out. She took a bite, slow and careful, like she wasn't sure it was real. Then she ate faster, as though fearing the food would vanish. Daniel turned away, pretending not to watch. He remembered battlefields, starving soldiers, children in refugee camps. He had seen this before. "You're safe now," he said quietly. "No one's going to hurt you." But even as he spoke, doubt stirred in his chest. Was that true? Could he really keep her safe, when the whole market and maybe half the galaxy would be hunting them? Leora finished eating and leaned back, small hands still gripping the blanket. Her silver eyes flicked to Daniel, watching him with quiet intensity. "Why?" she whispered. Daniel frowned. "Why what?" "Why take me?" He opened his mouth, but no words came. Why? Because he couldn't stand seeing her in that cage? Because something in those eyes had broken him open? Because in that moment, walking away had felt like betrayal of his own soul? At last he said simply, "Because no one belongs in a cage." Leora stared at him for a long time, then nodded once, as if that answer was enough. But the silence did not last. A warning light flashed on the console. Daniel leaned forward quickly, scanning the screen. "Damn." "What?" Leora asked softly. "They tagged my ship," he muttered. "A tracker. They'll know where we are soon." Leora's small face tightened with fear. Daniel turned to her. "Listen, if they come, you hide. Do you understand? Stay quiet. Stay out of sight." Leora shook her head fiercely. "No, don't leave me." The words hit him harder than he expected. He saw her hands trembling, her eyes shining with both fear and desperate trust. Daniel took a slow breath. He crouched down in front of her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "I'm not leaving you, not ever. But we have to be careful." Her small hand reached out, resting over his. For the first time, Daniel felt warmth, not just from her skin, but something deeper. A pulse, almost like energy, the same strange force that had bent the cannons away. He stared at their joined hands. "What are you, Leora?" he whispered. She looked down, then whispered, "Different. People fear me." Daniel shook his head. "Not me." "I don't fear you." Her silver eyes widened slightly. Then slowly, she leaned forward until her forehead rested against his arm. A small gesture but filled with meaning. Trust. Daniel's chest tightened. He had never planned for this. He was a man who drifted from job to job, war to war. Alone. But now, with this fragile child clinging to him, he felt a weight on his shoulders, heavy, but not unwelcome, a responsibility. The console beeped again, snapping him back. Daniel pulled away, forcing himself to focus. We need fuel and a safe place to land. Somewhere off the grid, Leora whispered. Home. Daniel turned sharply. Home? Where is your home? But Leora only shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. Gone. His heart ached at the sound of it. He wanted to ask more, but he saw how her shoulders trembled, how her voice cracked. She had already lost too much. He didn't press her. Instead, he said softly, Then this ship is your home now, until we find something better. Her eyes lit up just a little. She nodded as though she wanted to believe it. Daniel sat back in his chair, setting a new course. The engines hummed. The ship turned slowly, vanishing deeper into the sea of stars. He glanced at her one more time. She was already asleep, curled in the blanket, her small chest rising and falling gently. He whispered into the quiet cockpit, I'll protect you, Leora, whatever it takes. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. But Daniel knew their time was short. The tracker meant hunters were coming, and when they arrived, it wouldn't just be his life at risk, it would be hers. The bond had been made, strong, unshakable, and because of it, the galaxy would never let them rest. The galaxy did not stay quiet for long. Daniel's ship glided through the stars, its engines burning steady, but deep inside he knew the silence was only a mask. The warning light on the console reminded him they had planted a tracker. Somewhere someone was already hunting them. He checked the screens again, fingers moving quickly across buttons. The signal pulsed faintly, far but growing closer. Leora sat in the co-pilot seat, still wrapped in her blanket. She watched him with wide silver eyes. Her voice was soft. They are coming, aren't they? Daniel hesitated. He didn't want to scare her, but he had promised no lies. Yes, they'll come. They won't stop until they have you back. Her small hands clenched the blanket tighter. For a moment, Daniel saw the fear of the cage return in her eyes. But then she whispered, You said I'm safe with you. Daniel turned to her, his voice firm. And I meant it. The ship shook suddenly. A sharp beep echoed from the radar. Red dots appeared on the screen. 3 enemy ships. Fast, armed, and closing in. Daniel cursed under his breath. Bounty hunters, he pushed the throttle. The ship roared forward, stars stretching into long lines as they jumped into faster speed. But the hunters stayed close, their weapons already powering up. Leora gripped the armrest. They're going to catch us. Not if I can help it. Daniel's eyes narrowed. His hands moved with the calm skill of a man who had flown through war. The ship spun sharply, dipping into an asteroid field ahead. The hunters followed. Asteroids drifted like giant stones across the Black Sea, spinning slowly, crashing into one another with bursts of dust and rock. Daniel weaved between them, engines screaming. The hunters fired, bright beams flashing past. One shot scraped the hull, making the ship rattle. Leora cried out, her small body jolting in the seat. Daniel reached across, steadying her. Hold on, Leora. Trust me. He twisted the ship between 2 huge rocks, scraping so close the metal screeched. One of the hunters wasn't fast enough. An asteroid smashed into its wing, tearing it apart. Fire erupted as the ship spun out and vanished in a burst of flame. 2 remained. Daniel's eyes stayed sharp, sweat running down his face. Almost there, almost. He saw a narrow gap between 2 colliding asteroids. It was suicide to try. The rocks slammed together every few seconds, crushing anything caught in between, but it was their only chance. He pushed the engines to full power. The ship shot forward. Leora held her breath. The gap closed, then opened again just long enough. Daniel squeezed through. The asteroids crashed shut behind them, trapping the 2 hunters on the other side. Silence. Only the hum of their ship remained. Daniel leaned back, letting out a shaky breath. We made it. Leora stared at him, silver eyes wide. Slowly, a small smile broke through her fear. You're not afraid of anything, are you? Daniel gave a short laugh, though his heart was still pounding. I'm afraid of a lot of things. But losing you? That scares me the most. The smile faded. Her eyes lowered. I don't want to be lost again. He reached over, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. You won't, I promise, but even as he spoke, the console beeped again. Another signal, stronger, different, not just hunters, something bigger. Daniel's blood ran cold. He recognized the code. It was not random bounty hunters. It was a military signal. The market had sold her to someone powerful. Someone important. And now that person was coming to take her back. He set the course away from the asteroid field, pushing the engines harder. We need to find a safe planet. Somewhere to hide. Leora tilted her head, whispering, They won't stop. Not until I'm back in chains. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then we'll keep running. We'll keep fighting. Whatever it takes. For a while, the ship flew in silence again. Stars stretched across the windows. Daniel focused on the controls, but inside his chest, doubt grew heavier. Why was this child so important? Why would armies chase her? He glanced at Leora. She was staring at her hands, pale blue skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Energy shimmered around her fingertips like tiny sparks. Daniel whispered, What are they after? Is it your power? Leora flinched, pulling her hands into the blanket. She shook her head. I don't know, they say. I'm from an old line, special, dangerous, her voice cracked. They killed my family. Took me away. Because I am different. Daniel's heart clenched. He leaned closer, voice steady. You are not dangerous. You are a child. And they're afraid of what they don't understand. She looked at him, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. But you don't fear me. No, Daniel said. I don't fear you. I'll protect you always, her lips trembled. She whispered one word, soft but clear. Father. Daniel froze. The word echoed in his chest. He had never thought of himself as a father. He had never let anyone close enough. Yet when she spoke it, something inside him broke open. He placed his hand gently over hers. If that's what you want, then yes. I'll be your father. Leora leaned against him, her small body warm against his side. For the first time since he rescued her, Daniel felt not just responsibility, but belonging. But the console flashed again. A new signal, closer, stronger. Daniel's eyes hardened as he stared at the screen. A massive warship had locked onto their position. The hunt had only just begun. And now the real enemy was here. The warship loomed behind them like a shadow across the stars. Its size dwarfed Daniel's small vessel, its weapons glowing faint red as if hungry for blood. Daniel's ship shuddered as he forced it into a sharp dive, engines screaming in protest. The warship fired. Blue beams of energy streaked past, close enough to make the hull tremble. Hold on, Leora, Daniel shouted, gripping the controls tight. Leora clung to the seat, silver eyes wide. They won't stop, she whispered. Daniel's mind raced. His ship was fast, but not fast enough. The warship would catch them, burn them, and take her back. He had seen this kind of hunt before. His hand hovered over the emergency jump switch. It would launch them into hyperspace without proper calculations. It might save them, or tear the ship apart in the void. Then he heard Leora's voice. Soft, strange, almost like two voices at once. Let me try. Daniel turned sharply. What? Her small hands gripped the armrests and her silver eyes blazed brighter. The air inside the cockpit shimmered as if heat waves bent the light. Leora. Before he could stop her, the ship's panels flickered. Warning lights went out. For a heartbeat, everything inside the cockpit fell silent. Even the hum of the engines, then, boom. The warship's next volley of fire missed completely, not because Daniel had moved, but because the beams bent away mid-flight. Curving harmlessly into the void, Daniel's eyes widened. You did that, Leora gasped, her chest heaving. Sweat glistened on her pale blue skin. It listens to me, space, light, I can move it. But only a little. Daniel stared at her. In all his years, he had never seen anything like this. He had fought soldiers with cybernetic implants, pilots with neural links, assassins bred for war. But never a child who bent the very laws of the galaxy. The warship roared closer. More beams fired. Again they twisted, bending away from the small ship like rivers flowing around stone. But each time, Leora's face grew paler. Her body shook. Daniel gritted his teeth. Stop, you're hurting yourself. She shook her head, eyes glowing faint. I can do it. For you. His heart ached at those words. He placed a firm hand over hers. No, you don't have to do this alone. We'll find another way. The ship rattled again. Another hit skimmed the hull, alarm screaming. Daniel made his choice. He slammed his hand on the emergency jump switch. The ship shivered, lights flashing red, space outside blurred, twisting into impossible shapes, and then silence. They were gone. The stars reappeared, strange and unfamiliar. The warship was nowhere to be seen. Daniel exhaled shakily. His ship creaked, panels sparking from the dangerous jump, but they were alive. He turned to Leora. She was slumped against the seat, eyes half closed, skin even paler than before. Leora. He unbuckled and rushed to her side, kneeling. Stay with me, little one. Her silver eyes opened weakly. I didn't want you hurt. Daniel's throat tightened. He pulled her into his arms, cradling her gently. You saved us, but you don't have to burn yourself out for me, she whispered, barely audible. I'm not afraid. When you're here. He held her tighter, fighting the sting in his eyes. A soldier like him had learned to bury feelings long ago. But this child, this fragile being, broke down every wall in his heart. He carried her to the small medbay in the back of the ship. Setting her gently on the cot, he grabbed a scanner, checking her vitals. The readings made no sense. Her energy levels spiked far beyond what any child's body should hold. It was like she carried a storm inside her. Daniel sat on the edge of the cot, running a hand through his hair. What did they make you go through, Leora? Her eyes fluttered open again. I was born this way, she whispered. My people, long ago, had the gift. We could touch the stars, but then others came afraid. They hunted us, killed us. Daniel's chest tightened. Your family? Her lips trembled. Gone. He clenched his fists, anger burning in him. He had seen war, greed, cruelty, but to do this to a child, to wipe out a people because they were different? His stomach turned, he leaned closer, his voice steady but filled with fire. Listen to me. You are not cursed. You are not dangerous. You are precious. And as long as I breathe, no one will cage you again. Leora blinked, a single tear sliding down her cheek. Slowly, she reached out, her small hand brushing his scarred face. Promise? Daniel gripped her hand, his voice firm. I promise. The promise was heavy. It meant war. It meant enemies beyond anything he had faced. But he would keep it. The ship's console beeped again from the cockpit, pulling Daniel back. He kissed the top of Leora's head gently before standing. When he checked the screen, his heart sank. The emergency jump had thrown them into an unknown sector. Strange signals filled the radar, not the warship but others. Dozens of ships circling a nearby planet like vultures. And then a transmission crackled through, harsh and cold. Attention, traveler. You carry what belongs to us. Surrender the child or be destroyed. Daniel's fists clenched, his jaw set. He glanced back at the medbay where Leora rested, her small chest rising and falling. They'll have to kill me first, he muttered. For the first time in years, Daniel felt no fear of death, only the fire of a father ready to fight for his child. The galaxy had seen soldiers, hunters, kings, and tyrants. Now it would see something stronger, a father's war. The enemy fleet circled the planet like wolves around a wounded prey. Dozens of ships, their lights glowing red, their weapons locked on Daniel's small vessel. Daniel stood in the cockpit, hands tight on the controls. His ship was old, patched with scars from too many battles. Against a fleet, it was nothing. Behind him in the medbay, Leora lay weak on the cot. Her silver eyes were half closed, but she whispered softly, They're here for me. Daniel's chest tightened. He turned and looked at her. Even pale and tired, she carried a glow. The same glow that had bent cannons, that had shaken space itself. A glow the galaxy feared. They'll have to go through me first, he said, his voice low but steady. The transmission came again, sharp and cold. Traveler, surrender the child. Do so and you may live. Resist and you will burn. Daniel leaned over the console, pressing the button. His voice filled the channel. This child is not yours. She belongs to no one. If you want her, come and try. The reply was only silence, broken by the sudden hum of weapons charging. The first blast struck. The ship shook violently. Alarms screamed. Panels sparked. Daniel gritted his teeth, forcing the ship into a desperate roll. But the next blast came, and the next. He couldn't dodge them all. Another explosion rocked the hull. Daniel was thrown against the seat. The lights flickered, then dimmed. Daniel, Leora's weak voice called from the back. He staggered to his feet, rushing to her side. She was trembling, eyes glowing faint, trying to sit up. "No," he said firmly, kneeling beside her. "Don't use your power again. It's killing you." Her small hands gripped his sleeve. "They will take me. You'll die. I can stop them." Daniel shook his head. "Not like this. Not by burning yourself away. If anyone's going to pay the price, it's me." Her eyes filled with tears. "No, you promised." He brushed her hair back gently, voice softer now. "And I'll keep that promise, even if it costs everything." Another blast hit, harder this time. The med bay lights flickered. Smoke filled the corridor. Daniel knew the truth. The ship couldn't last. They needed a miracle or a sacrifice. He rose, moving to the storage panel. Inside was an old escape pod, small and battered, barely enough for one passenger. He dragged it out, coughing through the smoke. "Get in," he said. Leora shook her head, fear flashing in her eyes. "No, not without you." Daniel knelt again, holding her face gently in his rough hands. His voice broke, but he forced the words out. "Listen to me, Leora. You're more than just a child. You're hope. You're proof that the galaxy can be better. If they take you, that hope dies. But if you live, everything changes." Her tears streamed down her blue skin. "But I don't want to live without you." Daniel pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. For a moment, he let himself feel it all. The warmth of her small body, the trust in her embrace, the bond that had grown stronger than blood. "I love you, little one," he whispered. "More than my own life." The alarm screamed louder. Another hit rocked the ship. Time was gone. He lifted her gently, placing her inside the escape pod. She tried to fight, tried to climb out, but he held her there, kissing her forehead. "Be strong," he said. "Be free." Her silver eyes glowed brighter than ever, tears shining like stars. "Father, please don't leave me." His throat closed, but he forced himself to smile. "I'll always be with you. Here." He placed his hand over her heart. "No one can take that away." He sealed the pod, locking her inside. Her small hands pounded on the glass. Her voice cracked with desperate cries, but the sound was lost in the roar of another blast. Daniel staggered back to the cockpit. His hands moved fast across the controls, directing the pod's launch sequence. The path was clear, straight through the chaos toward the planet below. One button. That's all it would take. He looked at the pod one last time. Inside, Leora pressed her face to the glass, tears falling, her lips shaping silent words. "Don't go." Daniel's eyes burned, but his hand did not tremble. "Live," he whispered. Then he pressed the button. The pod shot out, blazing through space like a star. The fleet fired, but the pod was too small, too fast. It vanished into the atmosphere of the planet below. Safe. Daniel turned back to the console. The enemy warship loomed close now, weapons glowing. He smiled faintly, almost peacefully. "You want me?" he muttered. "Then take me." He pushed the throttle to maximum, driving his broken ship straight toward the heart of the fleet. Explosions lit the void. The hunters screamed in alarm, and Daniel's ship vanished into fire. Far below, on the surface of the planet, the escape pod landed in a quiet field. The hatch opened with a hiss. Leora stumbled out, falling to her knees. She looked up at the sky, where fire still burned among the stars. Her small hands clenched. Her silver eyes glowed not with fear now, but with fury and sorrow. They thought they had ended Daniel, but they had only lit a fire in the heart of a child who carried the stars themselves. The sky above the quiet planet burned with streaks of fire. Pieces of Daniel's ship fell like shooting stars, vanishing into the horizon. Leora stood in the field, trembling. Her silver eyes glowed, reflecting the chaos above. Tears streamed down her face, but behind the sorrow burned something stronger. Daniel was gone. Her father, the only one who had seen her as more than a weapon, had given everything so she could live. She pressed her small hand against her chest, where he had placed his hand last. His words echoed inside her. "I'll always be with you." The ground shook. Engines roared. Shadows covered the field as enemy ships descended through the atmosphere. They had followed. Dozens of soldiers marched from the landing craft, armored in black steel, their weapons raised. At their head stood a tall figure in crimson armor, helmet gleaming. His voice boomed across the field. "Child of the Starborn bloodline," he declared. "You cannot hide. Surrender and your death will be quick." Leora's tears dried on her cheeks. She stood straighter, her small frame filled with an unshakable fire. Her voice was soft, but it carried. "No," the commander laughed, the sound cold. A single child against an army? You are nothing. But he was wrong. The air around Leora shimmered. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Her silver eyes blazed brighter than ever before. You took my family, she whispered. You caged me. You hunted me. And you killed him. She raised her hands. Energy surged outward, a wave of light that rippled across the field. Soldiers staggered as their weapons bent and twisted, torn apart by invisible force. The commander shouted, "Fire!" Blaster bolts streaked toward her, but the light curved, bending away. Not one touched her. Her voice grew louder. He called me his daughter.
He gave me a home, and now...
I am not afraid. With a cry that shook the heavens, she unleashed her power. The sky cracked with silver light. The ground split, energy roaring through the field like a storm. Enemy ships shook violently, engines failing. Soldiers were thrown back as their armor shattered. The commander fought to stand, his crimson armor glowing. He raised a massive blade, stepping forward. You are a weapon, nothing more. Without us, you are nothing. Leora's eyes burned brighter, tears mixing with fury. I am not a weapon. I am his child, the commander charged. But before his blade could strike, the energy around Leora surged again. The blade snapped into pieces. The commander froze, lifted into the air by an unseen force. She stepped closer, her voice low, trembling with both grief and strength. You cannot cage me, and you will never cage anyone like me again. With a final wave of her hand, the crimson armor shattered and the commander collapsed into the dirt, defeated. Silence fell across the battlefield. The soldiers who remained dropped their weapons, fear in their eyes. One by one, they fled back to their ships, engines roaring as they escaped into the sky. Leora stood alone in the quiet field, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. The glow in her eyes dimmed, leaving only the soft silver shine. She fell to her knees, tears returning. Father. The wind carried her voice soft but strong. For a long time she stayed there, the stars above watching silently. Then footsteps crunched against the grass. Villagers from the nearby settlement approached cautiously, their faces filled with awe. They had seen the battle, the light, the way a child had turned back an army. One of them, an older woman, knelt beside her, laying a gentle hand on her shoulder. You are safe now, little one. Leora shook her head, wiping her tears. No, not just safe. I must keep his promise. The villagers exchanged looks. What promise? She stood slowly, her small frame trembling but unbroken. He saved me. He gave me a family. Now I will protect others like he protected me. Her silver eyes glowed softly in the fading light. I will build a home, a place where no child will fear cages again. The villagers bowed their heads. In her voice they heard more than a child. They heard a leader, and so it began. Years later, stories spread across the stars of a girl with silver eyes who stood against armies. A girl who gathered the broken, the lost, and the hunted, who built not an empire but a family, a place of safety among the stars. They called her the star-born child, but to her, she was simply Leora, and in her heart one name lived forever. Daniel, the man who had seen her not as a weapon, but as his daughter, the man who had given his life so she could be free. And as long as she lived, his sacrifice would never be forgotten.